Good morning, everyone. It is the 1st of April, 2019. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome to the Potter Expositor. Even though this is April 1st, I'm not going to pull any April 1st Fool's Day jokes on you. That's really not my intent today. I have no intention of doing that, as a matter of fact. The chat is on, and feel free to engage in that if you want. I don't even know where to start. I've heard so many other people say that, but it's really true. So my notes are in total disarray. A lot of things have happened this weekend. The first thing I want to bring up is what Twitter did to Unplanned, their Twitter account. Anybody who, by the way, let me tell you a little bit about it. Unplanned is a movie about the dangers and the emotional problems with abortions, how Planned Parenthood is a corporation that's more interested in profits than helping its patients. As a matter of fact, one of the things it points out, and I've heard this also elsewhere, that the abortions are where it makes its money, and of course the sale of baby parts, etc., getting government subsidies, contracts, things like that, and that it does very little real family planning like contraception or those types of things, helping families to grow, those types of, it's not for that. It's about destroying mankind. It's about inhumane things. Anyway, the movie is very good. You need to go see it. Again, it's called Unplanned. However, there has been probably an international, at least a national, if not an international effort by the leftist media and by other organizations to suppress it. Over the weekend on Twitter, it actually was basically taken down. It was taken down completely. Now, Mike Cernovich thought it might have been that they had taken it down themselves, and then for whatever reason, maybe by accident, or this is the Twitter page for Unplanned, that they may have taken it down by accident or by design to fix something, and then when they brought it back up, of course, you lose all of your followers and all that. But this thing kept going. It was still a problem for a long time over the weekend. Myself, I had the same problem. I'd go follow it, go back to it, and I was unfollowing it. So a lot of us started sending messages to Jack there at Twitter, calling him out on it, and I wasn't very nice. And finally, it seemed like mine was restored before anyone else's. It was kind of the way it looked. The follower count was jumping anywhere from 80,000 to 245,000 for Unplanned, but then it finally settled in after that. I think there was a lot of there was more than just a reset that had to happen that Mike Cernovich was explaining. There was a lot more to it than that, I'm sure. But at any rate, You need to go see unplanned. As Jack Posobiec has said, take plenty of tissue with you. You're going to need it. If you are human at all, if you have any love in your heart, if you have any natural affection in your heart, you're going to need those tissues. We're a wicked nation. We've supported this for far too long. We got sucked into the worship of Moloch and the passing of our children through the fire of Moloch, basically sacrificing them. And of course, they do it from a capitalistic, crony capitalistic point of view, which is selling those baby parts for money. That's how far down we've gone, which is another reason why I say a lot of the things that are happening to us now are judgments upon us for allowing this to continue. We're so afraid of standing up against evil because of the PC culture, and we're supposed to be magnanimous and tolerant. But there are some things you can't tolerate. There are some things you must stand against, and the government is wrong in so much about this tolerant behavior we're supposed to have. The American culture has been subverted. I'm not saying it was the best in the world to begin with, but its intentions were good. And unfortunately, at this point in time, I'm going to talk about Al Jazeera here in a few minutes. Our Republican form of government is no longer guaranteed. We have Sharia law popping up all over the place, which is against our laws. And I've talked about before, it's one thing to have a religious system, worshiping in your own way or whatever, but our laws guaranteeing liberty and freedom must be abided by, and if it isn't, then the DOJ needs to get involved in going after those people. And I've talked about that before. I won't beat that dead horse. Let me double check here and make sure everything's working. Like I say, the chat is on. Yeah, it looks like we're doing good. Yeah, and I'll go back to that in a few minutes. I don't want to get wrapped up in the chat right yet. I've just got so many crazy things to do. I've tried to I've changed some of the settings on my OBS. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, so if you see some problems, pardon me, I'll check it later and see if I can fix it. I'd like to get up where I could transmit in 4K, but with the internet connection out here, that's not going to happen. So this is probably the best it's going to ever be unless I'm traveling and I'm using somebody else's. Okay, as you can see, I've called this thing, it's time for Trump and Barr to attack. All of the evidence is out there. There's no reason not to. Some people are speculating that they want to wait for a few months, like I said yesterday with Giuliani saying it's going to be 6 months away, to kind of hit it closer to the elections. That's kind of like stepping upon the precipice and thinking that you're not going to fall. I don't think we have that much time. I'm like a lot of other people, Tom Fitton, Chris Farrell, Dan Bongino, on down the line. Tony Shaffer, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, John Cardillo, just a lot of people are saying, you got to go after this now. You got to take these people down. The American people are starting to doubt that their government, including the White House, are really concerned about justice. I don't want to go into a session today where I'm pointing out all the things that Trump said he would do and hasn't. I realize that he's been barricaded in there. He's been stopped on a lot of things. But by the same token, I see inaction. I see a lot of inaction. And I forget who said it, but I just saw it yesterday. Oh, it was Michael Savage. Michael Savage was on his boat, and he was really upset. He was doing a live stream on Periscope. I don't know if any of you saw that. And he was saying, what the hell is Trump doing? All these excuses, and yet our deficit is trillions of dollars more than when he came into office, and we have more people spilling over the border now than we did before. It's as if Hillary's in office. Now, Michael Savage said that, who was one of the people that really pushed to get Trump in. Again, I understand the difficulties Trump's under, but he still has Kushner and Ivanka in the White House, too. And others. So we're at a difficult time, as I keep saying, and I don't like to keep bringing this up. I saw the other day that somebody said that, and I won't mention the name of the person that they mentioned, but saying that this person on Twitter and on YouTube has their own blog too, said, don't listen to naysayers like Roy Potter. Look, I think what I've said over the last few years has been vindicated. We were told 2 years ago that things were going to change within a few weeks or a month, and they didn't. And those same people that were saying that then, I was one of them at first until I realized it was a crock of baloney, that there were other things going on. And then I quickly readjusted myself. But some people can't do that because they're dependent upon financial support. You know, it's their livelihood. Or they just, you know, I don't know what it is. But I call it as I see it. It's not naysaying. It's a warning. You know, it was like I talked about with Saul, if you understand the biblical stuff, you know. Saul and David, the prophets, and I'm not saying, well, actually the Spirit of Christ is the Spirit of prophecy, so I can't deny I'm a prophet in that regard. But the point is that going along to get along, going along with the leaders because they're your guy, this cult of personality is wrong. And I've never been like that, and I never will be. So those people who say that they've been warned not to follow naysayers like me, get out of here. What are you here for? If you don't want to understand these things, if you don't want to discuss these things, you don't need to be here. I've told a lot of people that before. Nobody's put a ball and chain on you to keep you here. So if you think this is naysaying rather than warnings and giving you cause to reflect, go somewhere else. Go listen to the people that are going to stroke your ego and promise you that life is going to be easy and that everything's going to be taken care of. Go ahead. I invite you to leave. It's not going to hurt my feelings. As I've said for a long time, I do this really for one reason only, and that is to unload the karma that I built over about 30 years of supporting this empire, this evil government. So it doesn't hurt my feelings any. All right. Let's get into this. I've mentioned headlines with the voice often. I really, really appreciate. She calls herself Nancy Morgan Hart, which is a pseudonym as well. And there's a reason she does that. If you don't know who Nancy Morgan Hart was, you might want to look at that. I won't take the time to go into that here. But I want to give a shout out to Headlines with a Voice. And I said some time ago that I was fairly certain that Trump had his own team of investigators that were out getting information. I said that, and I've had good cause to believe that. Why he hasn't acted? Well, timing is important in a battle, and I do understand that. But at this point in time, I think that we're very far down the road to where if it's going to be effective, it's going to have to be used pretty quickly. But anyway, she put out a video, I think it was Saturday, and I'm going to play it here. And the YouTube link is in the description box below. So I asked her some time ago if I could use some of her material in my live stream. She said, please do. But I want you to also, even though I'm going to show you this video here, I want you to go to her YouTube site and subscribe, because she does fantastic work. I don't know who her sources are, but they've been more on than the letter. She's been more on than this Q character, or anybody else for that matter, in this particular situation. So what she does is she presents some evidence here that I think is absolutely positively true. And what I want to point out about it is this, that these investigations, this thing that has been done, was done prior to Barr coming on the scene. Okay? Why do I say that? Because I still don't trust Barr. You know, I've got to, like I've said for several months now, I'm going to have to see arrests before I believe that anything is going to be done. You know, Trump says now that, you know, this has been treason. We're going to have to go after these bad people. We've heard this before, even from Trump, and then nothing happens. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm from Missouri. I want to see it before I'll believe it. And I'm still at that point. So I don't trust Barr fully. I do know what happened to Huber, and I've been right all along about that. Barr has asked him to submit some product, and that's why you're starting to see some things about Huber now, but he did nothing. He never interviewed anybody or anything that he was supposed to do. And I keep hearing this thing that, oh, he's got this power to, Huber, this power to not just investigate and subpoena, but to prosecute. No, that's not what Sessions told him to do. That's not in his directive. His directive is to check to see if there's any reason to investigate further. That's what it was about. He's not doing anything else. But we'll see. He's supposedly working with the IG. Well, okay, the IG is still, what, 30 to 90 days out is what we're hearing now. We keep hearing that. It keeps getting kicked down the road. But at any rate, the point is here, apparently I was correct. There's been this investigative team that's been put together, and that this information is under lock and key in the White House. So let me play this for you. She's right on, and then we'll be right back. It's about 4 minutes. Okay, here we go.
President Donald Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow, has a 90-page counter report locked away in a safe in his office. Drafted by the president's legal team, ready to be released in the event Robert Mueller's 2-year investigation into President Trump and his 2016 campaign came back with a report that the president had obstructed justice by allegedly instructing former FBI Director James Comey to let it go, in reference to Comey's inquiry into the president's former national security advisor, General Michael Flynn, or that the president or his campaign had colluded with Russia. It's been recently reported that although the president has been exonerated, if the Department of Justice turns over anything in the coming weeks that would suggest the harassment of the president by the DOJ is still underway, his legal team is prepared to respond by releasing portions of that counter report. Many of us have been wondering why Robert Mueller's final report exonerated the president. It's not because we believe that the president is guilty of obstructing justice or conspiring with the Russians to steal the presidency from Hillary. It's because we know who Robert Mueller is, his role as a swamp fixer, and his past criminality. Certainly, Mueller's chief objective as special counsel was to clean up and hide as much as he was able of the crimes committed by Clinton and her associates, Mueller being chief among them, having played a part in the Uranium One treachery, and his role in the 9/11 cover-up. After all, he was the FBI director at the time. But he had a second objective, to somehow bring the president down. I find it difficult to believe that Mueller and his team of liberal Clinton campaign donating attorneys weren't able to concoct a phony something, anything, to present to the salivating liberals in Congress. Even if it were later to be proven as false as the dossier Hillary contracted Fusion GPS and Steele to create, whatever it would have been, it definitely would have had the effect that it was intended to have, to destroy President Trump's chances for re-election and to keep the cloud hanging over him that's been there since before he took office. But that didn't happen, did it? And Attorney General William Barr, also a swamp dweller from way back, together with assistance from Rod Rosenstein, the traitor who, let's not forget, suggested wearing a wire to secretly record the president, wrote his summary of Mueller's final report, stating that the special counsel had found no evidence of collusion, thus exonerating President Trump. But Barr, ever loyal to the swamp, made certain to inject a little doubt in his summary. The special counsel states that while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Thus, Barr salvaged whatever credibility the FBI may still have and protected the president from further harassment. Now, here's my speculation. Could it be that someone's been amassing mountains of indictable evidence against Mueller, or someone Mueller is protecting? What if, for example, That counter report in Sekulow's safe is actually evidence against someone that played a key role in covering up a crime against the American people. A crime that was blamed on a foreign entity. A lie that was used to then send our troops overseas to engage an enemy that wasn't. If whatever's locked in Sekulow's safe was shown to key players in this attempted coup, maybe even to Barr, it must be something so toxic, so potentially destructive to the swamp, that Mueller backed off and wrapped up his cleanup operation and exonerated the president. Whether it has to do with Mueller's role in the cover-up I just mentioned or something entirely different, something definitely changed. Because I expected Bob to be investigating President Trump at least until halfway through his 2020 re-election campaign. But now Bob's gone. For good, let's hope. Remember, the 90-page counter report exists. What's in it, and whether it was shown to key players in this attempted coup against the president to put him in check, those are my speculations. For Headlines with a Voice, this is Nancy Morgan-Hart.
Okay. I'm glad you could sit through that and watch it. Again, please go to her YouTube channel. It's Headlines with a Voice. She's very good. She keeps her cool. She's not like me. Even when she's upset, and you can kind of tell when she's upset, she doesn't lose it like I do. She keeps it calm, cool, and collected, and she sticks with the information and doesn't really go out on a rant. But she has a good sense of humor, too. So please go and subscribe to her on YouTube. She doesn't have a Twitter, but her YouTube is very, very good. So, as I've said, I'm certain that there are these things that have been happening behind the scenes, and Trump has had a problem with people that are willing to go forward. Now, the real question is, and I'm certain that Barr there's no mention of Barr in this report that's in the safe. However, Barr, depending upon what he does, better be careful, because despite that he is deep state, despite that, and despite all the friends that he has, Mueller being one of them, if he aids and abets in this thing in any way, including obstruction of justice and all of that, covering up or whatever, he should be a target as well. And then who is Trump going to rely on? Well, I don't know. I could say, but at this point in time, I'd rather not. But at this point, we'll watch. As I said, it's time for Barr and Trump to attack, and hopefully they do so. So this information may have had something to do with Mueller more than anything else, and Barr pushing on it as well, finally closing up this bogus investigation. Notice that they're trying to bring up the Papadopoulos thing now. Well, Papadopoulos has already shown what's going on there. Did you hear his interview with Jack Posobiec and some other people? He's talking about it now. Who did Mueller threaten to throw him in jail for? Mueller accused him of dealing in the FARA, violating FARA, the Registration Act for Foreign Agents. Mueller accused him of violating that and that he was going to throw him in jail for it. Do you know what country it was? It wasn't Russia. It was Israel. This whole thing stinks to high heaven. So, at any rate, it's going to be interesting as Papadopoulos and Carter Page and these other people start to reveal more about what's happened now that this thing has been shut down. And, of course, President Trump and his report in the safe. But something has to happen. We need to see something occur quickly. I understand that Senator Lindsey Graham recently said that he wasn't going to go after Hillary. Big mistake. I understand why he said that. Maybe he's saying he won't go after her, but maybe Barr or Trump will in some other way. I don't know. But that's disheartening to hear him say that when she is at the center of all this, along with Soros, Obama, Brennan, Clapper, even Hayden, Michael Hayden. A lot of people, he's kind of dropped off the radar, but General Michael Hayden was a problem as well, and all of the others that we could name. Okay, I want to move along here and talk about the danger that we're in, as I always do. If you'll notice, and I'm going to read a little bit this. While the DOJ, the FBI, the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of the Interior, the EPA, the IRS, etc., have been harassing good Americans on UN resolutions like Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, and anything that they can get on these people to steal their property or their resources or their freedom. While they're doing that, while they've been concentrating on those things, helping the cronies out under color of law and under color of treaty, and I'm going to call it that, people like Hillary Clinton on the Uranium One deal, which is what happened in Hammond Ranch, or Harry Reid down there in Nevada, those types of things. There were problems on the Red River, there were problems in Wyoming, everywhere with this land theft, which is about taking the resources. While they've been doing that, they've been allowing our enemies, literally our enemies, who do not have any interest in coming here and supporting our constitutional republic, quite the opposite, destroying it, to get a foothold here. We sent weapons in the Fast and Furious to the insurrection in Mexico, and that's what I'm calling, not the drug war. Go back and look at my documentary, Borders, Mexican Drug War Insurgency. It was an insurgency that we continue to this day to operate. Just the fact of the matter. And now the results of that with these invasions are occurring. They're doing exactly what that was designed to do. And I called it back in 2011. So they're harassing all these good American citizens, including Trump, of course, all these resources that have been to foment this ridiculous false narrative against Trump, which is really against all the rest of us. And they've allowed our enemies to gain footholds here. People want to come here, like I said, and practice their religion, that's one thing. But to instill laws that are foreign to our Constitution is wrong, and our government is allowing them to do it. We know that there are compounds around the country where there are weapons. And there's only one that I know of that they've taken out. It was the one in New Mexico, which became so obvious they had to do something about it. But there are others. I'm for letting people live. Live and let live. That's fine. But you have to understand, and I know there are talks, and I've said this before, I always have to make sure I qualify this. I'm going to say it again, okay? These people that complain about Jews and about Islam and about Catholic, I understand all that. It doesn't matter what group they're in. They're authoritarians and they want power and control, and they hate mankind. In the situation that we're seeing now with this problem with colonization by Islam, that's the first step. They come in, it's a tolerant thing, but their end game is jihad and to take over. That you will submit to that, and that's what Islam means. What I'm saying is that those situations have developed here, and I frankly don't believe, because it's in the New World Order's interest, it's in the deep state's interest to protect them. I really don't believe that the FBI or the DOJ is doing anything about it. Again, practicing your religion is one thing, but that's not what's going on here. This is an invasion. So we're getting invaded from the south, and we're getting invaded by this open door policy with, bringing these migrants from the Middle East in. We're destroying ourselves. So, again, I'm going to say it. While the FBI's been out there harassing good Americans, and not just the FBI, law enforcement in general. Again, I'll bring up the situation with them, the SWAT team going into that family with guns drawn in Arizona because their child didn't go to the hospital when the fever broke anyway. Those types of things. That's happened. The Amish farmers. These ridiculous things. They've been doing this for years, and they've been letting the real enemies of the American people, of our constitutional republic, gain a foothold here. And it's nothing less than that. Again, I don't care. I'm not Islamophobic any more than I don't know what would be called, anti-Semite, which I'm not either. But there's a difference between believing something but then having a political agenda. And as I've always said, that political agenda has to stop where my nose ends. And that's not the way it's working out. I understand Omar is saying some horrible things again, which doesn't surprise me. I'm not going to bring her up. But this is bad. We have enemies that have not only infiltrated us, but have taken positions of power because we've allowed it to happen. The Constitution guarantees us a Republican form of government, and any place that doesn't abide by that needs to be shut down by the DOJ and maybe even the DOD. Because those aren't just enforcing laws here in the United States for the DOD. It's not criminal laws. This is talking about an invasion. Whole different story, and I've talked about that before. I even got into some arguments with some Army people about that back when I was doing my borders thing. So at any rate, okay, I want to move along also to this thing where they're attacking Trump, Maxine Waters, Pelosi, Feinstein, Schumer, all these people about this situation with the Mueller report, and that he's covering it up, that he's calling it something else. You know what I'm talking about? I want to point something out. This cover-up business, this using positions of power to protect the elite guilty. I want to point out to you, Schumer, Pelosi, Brennan, all of you people, Blumenthal, what do you call Loretta Lynch? What do you call her when she said, we're going to change the gross negligence investigation to a matter? A matter. So these same people want to accuse President Trump of manipulating the laws when they have done it themselves. Let's not lose sight of that. It's very important to understand that. Okay. Yeah, they want to say that Trump is obstructing justice when there was no crime in the first place to obstruct justice. And yet, Loretta Lynch, when there was a crime, she did obstruct justice. And that was the point of that information I just gave out, when she said to call it a matter, not an investigation. So she's the one that's done an obstruction of justice, not Trump. Okay, getting back with this thing with us being invaded, I just got to touch on this for a minute. I put out a video a few days ago where I said New Zealand has been conquered. And if you're watching what's happened there, it has. They're gathering up the weapons of the people. Can you imagine, just say, cars kill people, so they go out, the drivers in the cars kill people. So they go out and they take everybody's car away. That's basically what's happened here. And of course, it's a program to subjugate the people, to make it so that they can't stand against tyrants or criminals, be they the street criminals or the criminals in government. And then New Zealand goes even further, and they have all these people starting to wear the hijabs, all these women. They've been conquered already. They've been conquered. Now, I went on to Al Jazeera, and you should do this too. I haven't got the link down there, but you need to know about this. I went on to Al Jazeera, and they're pushing gun control. Isn't that interesting? Why would Al Jazeera be pushing gun control? Oh, it's just because they're taught, they're like all the other news agencies? No, well, that's true to one extent. But why would Al Jazeera be pushing gun control? Why would Dianne Feinstein say that we need to do the same thing New Zealand has done? In warfare, you cut off lines of communication first. First Amendment, right? The second thing you do, or maybe at the same time, is you disarm the people that you're going to attack. How do you disarm them? Bomb them, whatever. But of course, politically, take their weapons away or threaten to. Make it so they can't use them in their self-defense. So Al Jazeera is pushing this gun control. That should tell you everything you need to know. When you go to Iraq or these other places, guns are everywhere. But in the United States, they want to push for gun control. It's to make you an easy victim. What did Colonel Cooper say? And I'm going to bring this down here, and I want you to look at it again. If violent crime is to be curbed, and that's also tyrants, it is only the intended victim who can do it. This is why they want to take your weapons. And I know I've talked about this before, but this is so important. This should be my new channel motto, actually. The felon does not fear the police, and he fears neither judge nor jury. Therefore, and this is the one that I'm really thinking about making this my new motto. Therefore, what he must be taught to fear is his victim. So they want to make sure that you potential victims out there are not feared by those who want to subjugate you, rob you, rape you, pillage you, murder you, so that they can control you. Don't be fooled by that. And again, as I've said for days now, go out and buy that AR-15. Oh, I just remember what Ilhan Omar said. She's talking to a group of Islam people in her constituency, and she says, Muslims need to go raise hell. Now, you'd think that that's, fight for our rights. They've got their rights. They can live Sharia law, but they can't institute it in our municipalities, in our counties, or in their own municipalities. If they organize in that way, they cannot do that. And I brought up the Utah War in the 1850s as an example of how that should be handled. It should not, it cannot, it not just should not, it cannot be permitted. And she's talking about raising hell. And Tlaib is still talking about impeaching Trump. And Ocasio-Cortez thinks that the amendment to limit term limits for presidents was done to stop President Roosevelt. She knows. You know, for the people behind her, they do a lot of good research, but either she doesn't quite process it or they don't know what they're doing either. They're real good at promoting actors and characters and a drama, but their sense and understanding of history and law is pretty pathetic. But that just shows you how far down the road we are that she was able to get into office, all three of them. I got to mention the Midwest flooding again, as I did the other day. Just be aware this is going to affect our food supply and the water supply there. I'm not going to go so far as to be conspiratorial and say that this is part of weapons warfare, but considering that the same thing is happening in Iran, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. Be a good way to stop Trump's agenda. It'd be a good way to stop the MAGA, the whole thing, by causing a food shortage. Boy, that would cause chaos real quick. But again, it goes along with what Jeff Cooper said. The intended victim is the one who must take that weapon out of the hands of the attacker. Nobody else can do it. Nobody. Because first of all, they won't be there. And that's the case here. So take that weapon that they're trying to use against you out of their hands by getting your food supply, your water supply, your weapons, your medical supplies. Okay? Because they're going to turn these radical groups against the rest of us and then use that as a reason to take everything away from us. Just be aware. And Trump hesitating to attack, he's still not attacking on the First Amendment thing the way he needs to. He's talking about it, but no action. The Second Amendment, same thing. As a matter of fact, the bump stock thing, there was an appeal to that, and the courts denied it. I think the Supreme Court did. And it's the principle. That's the problem. So, again, I'm really concerned, and these people that say that we can't hold Trump's feet to the fire because we're failing to be loyal to him. I'm sorry, but I agree with Alex Jones, and I agree with Robert Barnes, Jones' attorney, and he's on Twitter. Robert Barnes Law, extremely intelligent guy. He's represented the Covington kids. He's represented other people. He's now representing Alex Jones, and he's saying, hey, we have to demand that Trump does these things. He has to act, or he's going after the criminals in government. If he fails to do that, he's at least being derelict of his duty, or he's being an accessory. So he must act. Plus, he's in violation of his oath if he doesn't act. Again, I understand what he's up against, but there are ways around it, and I wish he would just kick Kushner and Ivanka out of the White House. I'm getting sick of those two. I think all of us are. Okay, along the Second Amendment deal, some good things, but I don't think the war is over yet. In the San Diego County, I believe, is where this happened. A federal judge, Roger Benitez, I think was his name, he ruled that the California magazine ban, the large capacity magazine ban, is unconstitutional. Wow! Wow! Now, don't think that the state of California and others aren't going to appeal that decision to the Ninth Circuit. Of course they are. The Ninth Circuit will then rule against Benitez. And then it'll go to the Supreme Court. And that's going to be a real challenge to see if those people are going to stand up for us or not. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that. As I've said, I don't know that they're going to be there to help protect us and our rights. They're floundering everywhere. But it'll end up in the Supreme Court for the final argument. And hopefully they'll rule that Benitez made the right decision. But, man, I don't know. Trump said he was going to support the Second Amendment and enact laws to enforce it. You know, the Bill of Rights is a statement, but you need statutes to enforce it. And unfortunately, we've allowed the leftist Marxists and the socialists and those who want to interrupt our rights to dictate what those laws are. And I'm not saying they're constitutional. They're not. But then you have to go through all this mess. So something needs to be done. One of those things that can be done, as I've said before, and I keep repeating, is for Trump to do the same thing with the First and Second Amendment enforcement that Dwight D. Eisenhower did when he sent the military into the South to enforce civil rights laws. Same thing. Okay? Just takes guts to do it. But if we don't do it, you know, he's trying to, I think, as some people have said, I think Trump is trying to organize this thing so that it doesn't cause a civil war in the country. He's trying to gently, you know, show everybody, and we've talked about this before, many of the Threadeteers on Twitter have been, they've been correct about this, about his intents to try to avoid a violent conflict. But the fact of the matter is, and I want that too, but the fact of the matter is that people are suffering under this delusion, under this assault on our constitutional republic every day. So things better start happening. And again, that's why I played the headlines with the voice thing. I've talked about the balkanization of the United States. And it's getting worse. I believe in states' rights. I believe that when, first of all, and I forget what the amendment was, but when senators were made elected by the population of the state rather than the state legislature. There was a reason why the Constitution had the senators answer to the state legislature, so the state legislature could control what they're doing back in D.C., because the populace doesn't pay any attention. I mean, heck, the legislature hardly pays attention, but the populace definitely does. So that was a move by the deep state, by basically the banking system, to take control away from the states and make it so that it goes to people who really don't understand most of the time what's going on. I don't know if you understand that whole argument, but that's what happened. I believe in states' rights. But at the same time, okay, all of these things must abide by the constitutional republic, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's what we want the states to, because that's what they said. The Constitution to the federal government was the states and the peoples, but primarily the states contract with the central government to perform certain delegated functions. So it is true that the states have to take control of that, and you know how hard that's going to be. But this whole thing has been designed to balkanize us. So now what we have is we have states and municipalities saying, we're not going to obey the federal law. Well, in some cases, that's just. For instance, the county sheriff in Colorado, who's basically saying, well, that's a state law there, but they're talking about these red flag laws that Lindsey Graham wants to introduce, which then will become federal. The point is that this county sheriff says in Colorado he's not going to enforce these draconian gun laws in Colorado, right? So in his situation, he's upstanding to the Constitution of the United States. And that's how he's standing against the oppression of the state. be it state or federal. The problem is we're now getting these colonies, these areas around here that stand up against the federal government in violation of constitutional principles. For instance, the sanctuary cities for illegals. The sanctuary cities, they're not called sanctuary cities, but these places where they're enacting draconian gun laws. The places where they're instigating and initiating and developing Sharia law outside of the Constitution and forcing it on inhabitants. First Amendment violations. So you see, what's happening is the states aren't standing up, the idea of states' rights standing up for the constitutional republic and putting the federal government in its place when it violates its constitutional delegated authority. Instead of that, we're getting these places that are violating the Constitution and defying the constitutional laws of the republic. Now, I realize people are going to say, well, we haven't had a republic since 1879, whatever the heck it was. I understand that, but Marbury versus Madison says anything that does that is null and void at its inception, and that's why I say that the Constitution's still valid. It's just that it's being ignored, and illegally so. And Marbury versus Madison explains that, and I won't get into any more detail than that. Okay. Also, you know, you have the federal government imposing Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 laws, agreements, treaties with the UN. And those are the types of things that I thought that the executive order that Trump signed on the 21st of December 2017, I think that's when it was. Boy, it's hard to believe we've been going this long, was supposed to counter. Because that's exactly what happened to the Bundys in Nevada and happened to the Hammonds in Oregon. So, you know, local jurisdictions should stand up against the federal government when it tries to enforce those non-delegated powers. Actually, they don't have powers in that situation when they try to force it on the states. But we're seeing now that this division, this balkanization, is now getting to the point where you have cities and states that are supporting the constitutional republic and denying the federal government its authority when it violates those constitutional principles, and we're getting places that deny the federal government when it tries to enforce constitutional principles, and the states or the municipalities are against it. Do you see what's happening here? Eventually, what's going to happen if this continues is we'll lose the central government. Some people say, well, that's great. You don't know what you're talking about. This is not going to be a good thing. But I don't want to get into the details of how this was planned back in the 1800s and how it's going to affect us in the future, but it's not going to be good. The federal government's role was to protect the constitutional republic and the Bill of Rights. That was their goal, and to defend our borders and our people. They had a special delegated enumerated powers that they weren't supposed to leave, and because of greed and avarice and the desire for power, we've allowed them to usurp all of that. And now we have this entire division that's going on. Part of that good and bad thing I've talked about, good and evil. And the future doesn't look good, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a bad situation here. Okay, let me see here. I think I've covered everything except this one last deal, and then I'll go to chat. Actually, I'm going to play a Second Amendment thing again because I think it's that important, if you all will allow me to do that. And then we'll come back to chat. And it's the same Second Amendment thing I've played a few other times, but I really think it's that important. Plus, there'll be a little break because we're going to go a little longer today. Okay. I saw an article in the Daily Caller where it says intelligence experts are saying that the dossier should be investigated as Russian disinformation. What? Do you see what they do? Do you see what these intelligence people do? Everybody understands at this point, or should, that this thing was commissioned by Hillary and the DNC, Soros, Obama, etc. Strzok and Page, the insurance policy. not the Papadopoulos thing, which was after this whole thing got started. But now these intelligence experts are saying it should be investigated, the dossier, as Russian disinformation. Not that Hillary had anything to do with it. Not that Obama had anything to do with it. Not that Steele and MI6 and the Five Eyes had anything to do with it. Okay, so what I have to say about these intelligence experts is this. They're either incompetent, they're stupid, or they're complicit. That's my call on the Daily Caller article. Okay, let's go to the Second Amendment short break. Go get yourself a drink or whatever. Take care of nature, whatever you need to do. We'll come back and get to the chat, okay? All right, here we go. Okay. I think that's important that we talk about that because they're really moving towards this, and you know that I'm right. The First and Second Amendments in particular, and by implication the Fourth, are under serious attack. With the conquering of New Zealand, again, that's exactly what that is. That's a beta example. That's how they want to do it here, okay? They'll use some other surreptitious, nefarious methods to do it. A food shortage, where if you want food, you got to turn your weapons in. The Midwest flooding. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but all these are possibilities. So we need to be serious about this, and we need to make a political statement by going out and buying that AR-15. I see Colonel Kurt Schlichter all the time saying, buy guns and ammunition, buy guns and ammunition. And he understands that that's a political statement. He's not calling for violence, although defending yourself is perfectly acceptable and expected. I would be remiss, I'm going to go to chat, but I'd be remiss if I didn't go ahead and jump into this cauldron that's going on over Q. It's been a really nasty knockdown, drag-out fight on Twitter and on YouTube for the past couple of days between the MAGA coalition and some others, and the Q crowd, including Patriot Soapbox and particularly Praying Medic. And I don't usually bring these things up, but I wanted to point out, because I was involved in Q shortly after it began, because I thought, having been in some intelligence circles prior to that, I knew that those things could be used to pass information on to operatives. I understood that. Okay, just like a newspaper ad I've talked about before, classified section, a comic, whatever. The old way they used to pass information. I thought it was a possibility. And then about a month into it, I realized that it was moving into the direction of a cult, and I started warning about it. Q started out as a Socratic tool to get people to think. That's the way it looked. But it hasn't been that for a long time. It still has some of that spice, some of that character. But it's become authoritarian, it's become dictatorial, and it's become vengeful for anybody who was either in the group and left, or people who don't want to have anything to do with it, or people who call it out because they find that it's one thing to allow people to go and investigate something. Fine, Q people go do that. But it's now gotten to the point where if we don't go along with that, you attack people. And so what do? They attack back. And Dr. Gorka called Q garbage, not Lieutenant General Flynn, like I mentioned the other day in a live stream and impromptu. Somebody said, well, because Gorka's attacking Q, he's attacking and saying that since he's calling Q garbage, he's calling Flynn garbage. No. That's somebody who is really not making a cogent, logical, reasonable correlation. So what's happened is that the Q people, Q himself and others, have attacked Gorka. And then there's this relationship that Praying Medic, this David Hayes guy, had with the MAGA coalition, Adam Gingrich and those people earlier on some time ago. I don't want to get in the middle of that other than to say that it's real obvious that like I mentioned here a few seconds ago, that Q has become dictatorial. If you really honestly believe that intelligence operatives in the White House and the white hats in the intelligence community and President Trump himself would say that it's okay for Q and its appendages to be acting in the way that it is, attacking people who don't believe it anymore, who find problems with it. If you really think that those people are doing that, the white hats, the intelligence white hats, and Trump, that should tell you not to have anything to do with those intelligence white hats or Trump. So I had to bring this up today because it's really gotten out of hand. Q is becoming violent. It's becoming vengeful. It's calling for retribution. It's calling for fighting. I believe in self-defense, but you Q people are turning a debate into a war. You are being run by the leftist Marxists that Hillary Clinton controls. And it's for anybody who will open their eyes and look at it, it's plain to see. And I said that in a Twitter post this morning. You act more like leftist Marxist social justice warriors than you do constitutional republic supporters. You have thin skins, or you're just bad people. I'm not saying all of you. I'm saying because a lot of people are just out there, and they really are. You look at the people there at the rally, this latest rally that Trump had, and they don't look like bad people. I could say some other things, but I won't. But by and large, the people that have some influence in Q are very nasty, mean-spirited, possibly criminal people. So Q has turned from a Socratic, useful tool into a dictatorial cult. I'm just warning you. And I was there from the beginning. I saw it all happen. No, I'm not deep state. I have nothing. If you don't know my background, I've been doing these types of things, standing up for constitutional republic principles since I was in high school. Oh, you're deep state. You work for the FBI. You're a CIA. Those are attacks. Those are defamations, not arguments. So look out, folks. I do think Q is turning into a dangerous thing. It's been kind of dangerous, but now it's getting to the point where it could be really dangerous. So I have counseled people that Q is attacked to protect themselves, take whatever is necessary actions to protect themselves, because there have been a lot of attacks by these Q crazies. I'm not saying you're all crazy, but I am saying that you've suspended your reason. You think you're researchers and you're not. Q itself uses disinformation as necessary. So Q tells you that he lies to you. Why would you trust somebody like that? Trump, on the other hand, said, what? I will never lie to you. And you put a face to that. Okay, that's all I've got to say. All right. But I felt like if I didn't bring that up, that, probably wouldn't be right. Let's see if I can figure out what's going on here. Oh, boy. Okay, here we are. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chat, and then we'll go down and see what you have to say here. I don't doubt that there are a lot of people that are causing some problems here. Deplorical, thank you. If my monitors are here, you can go ahead and kick people. Liza Jean, please feel free. Roosevelt, if you're here, I should know the other one that's slipping my mind right now. But anyway, you guys that I've given the wrenches to, you can kick them if they're getting nasty. Tina Fisher, she says, I don't know who the real Jews are, don't understand all that stuff. I just know I love the Jew Jesus. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. And I understand what you're saying. And we don't need to get into that right now. But yeah, there are Jews who say they are Jews and they are not. And Jesus himself said that. And there are reasons why. And I wrote a book about it called The Crimson Thread, which is now out of print. But yeah, the important thing is that you abide by Christ-like principles. I don't even care if you don't believe in Jesus. Some people say, that's heretical. No, if you have Jesus' characteristics, you are taking the name of Jesus upon you, whether you know it or not. Trump is afraid of his daughter. It could be. I don't know what's going on there. I swear I don't. She and Trump and Kushner have caused a lot of problems. I need more coffee now. Well, during the break, I went and got some more. Okay, so that's what I did. Okay. Yeah, dances reluctantly. It's exactly what I'm saying. They appear to have attempted to overrun the nation with foreigners. As Trump puts it simply, he says people that don't love our people, that don't love our country. That's exactly right. That's an invasion. And the FBI and the DOJ and the Department of Homeland Security and the Congress, they've all supported this. Not to mention Soros and Clinton, etc., right? They've all supported this because it was always in their interest to destroy the Constitutional Republic of the United States. They wanted to destroy the United States and move everything into China as the China model. And they've done it on purpose. And we can't allow it any longer. And the only way to fix it is by force. I hate to say it, but the DOJ will have to go into these places that are denying the First, Second, and Fourth Amendments to the people, and places that are setting up governments that are not a Republican form of government, say, hey, you either stop or we're going to take you out. It's that serious. I'm telling you. This is going to end badly unless we stand up and we be strong in the principles. Again, I know we're being judged for our past sins, our crimes, abortion, the LGBTQ thing. I don't care if you're LGBTQ, but to promote it and to push it on kids is wrong. To tell them that they, if they feel this way, it's okay. Hey, all kids struggle with their sexuality at first. Nature will help them figure it out. They don't need you out there. I'm talking about the government and these front groups pushing it on them. The point is, we've gone down that road. We've started unjust wars. A lot of the migration problem, Obama started. Actually, it went back to Bush, and you could go back further than that. So I know that we're not innocent from all of this. But we need to repent, and we need to say we're going to stick to constitutional principles and to Christ-like principles. I'm talking about the principles. And if we don't do that, we're going down. Yeah, the chemtrailing continues. Yeah, I agree, Sir Law. No one should call our country a democracy. It isn't. Democracy is mob rule. They keep I hate it when I hear people that should know better say that. Even Trump says democracy. It's just bad. It's just really bad. I think I've slipped once or twice, though. So, yes, CISPO, yeah, the chemtrailing continues and the 5G is being rolled out. I know. Brandon Joseph, you're saying, and Jesus called them the synagogue of Satan. They are they who say they are Jews and are not. Okay, it's not the Judahites. Again, I don't know how you get a copy of my book, The Crimson Thread, but you need to understand the difference. We were talking about, Jesus was talking about Edomite Arabs who had converted to Judaism by force and then took over with the help of Rome. That's what he's talking about. And those people still exist today. All the real Judahites, almost all of them, were annihilated prior to that and during the destruction of the Second Temple during the Roman War and then in the Bar Kokhba rebellion. And a lot of you don't understand that history, but at any rate. So, yeah. Does that mean that I don't think they have a right to exist? No. That's fine. But we need to be discerning to understand the difference. That's why I say that Israel has a right to exist. I have no problem with that. But to say you're anti-Zionist is not being anti-Semitic, because they're not the same thing. Despite every... Who was that said that? I think, was it Pence? That said that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism? Absolutely false. Absolutely 100% false. Soul Tribe. Trump is ruining his reputation by being a wimp and refusing to declassify and letting the tribunal arrest begin. Tribunals, careful there. Careful there. I understand what you're trying to say. Careful there. As I've said, I disagree with some of the people from Liberty University that say, and others that say that there can be no military tribunals for civilians. That is not true. There are some, and even Kavanaugh explained that. There are certain circumstances, they're very, very narrow, where military tribunals can be used, but they are not going to be used on the rank and file, the larger numbers of people. Okay? It's going to be a handful at the most. Sedition, trying to I forget exactly the USC, the United States Code, but there's trying to destroy the government of the United States. I forget exactly what it's called, but it is a statute. And it defines what those things are. Those things, that people can be charged with those, but tribunals aren't going to run those. Okay, the regular court system will. But yeah, Trump. That's why I'm always on Trump. And right now, again, we're hearing, I'm going to go after the bad guys. We've got to look. No, he didn't even say that. He says, I've got to look at this. I know who they are. He's got the thing that I showed you a few minutes ago with Headlines with a Voice. They've got the information. And this was before Barr came on. They have everything they need. He has Article 2, Section 2. He can call people up and commission them to take care of this. There are ways around it. And yes, it could cause a shooting war, but like I said, we're in dire straits as it is. Yeah, the pilots of the chemtrailers, Tina Fisher, I know. I don't know what's wrong with people. I really don't. Okay. Mike Guyver, you say a lot of interesting things, and this is one. The governments and our leaders are talking with split tongues. I know, and that's another reason why we need to see action. Like I talked about at the beginning of this broadcast, they go after the little people. They enforce the law unjustly. The things that Mueller did, parallel construction, and Wiseman making crimes when there aren't any, threatening people with crimes when they aren't any, trying to force them into signing perjurious statements to try to get somebody else in trouble. Those have been standard operating procedures for a long time, and they're wrong. They're wrong. Trump needs to go after it, and it needs to be Congress and the president need to revamp that entire system. And I've called for it, and some other people have, a total dismantling of the military intelligence people can handle our intelligence problem. We need to get rid of the IC, basically, the intelligence community, and that includes the FBI. The DOJ and the State Department needs to be overhauled too, and there are others. But yeah, that's a big job, and I'm not saying it can happen overnight. Exposing these people, that's real good. But if Trump thinks that he's going to be able to convince the entire American public, if he really thinks he can convince the entire American public with this exposing that he's done of the deep state, that they're all going to fall in line with him, I can tell you that's not going to happen. There are people that hate him and hate our constitutional republic so much, he's not going to get, and there are a large group of people now. It's not going to be that easy. Yeah, deplorable. He said he'd be the law and order president. I know. Well, see, again, he's thinking of the little people, enforcing the law on the little people and that stuff, even his immigration stuff like that. Law and order has to first be produced, has to be enforced on the law enforcers. And if you're not going to enforce the law enforcers to abide by the Constitutional Republic and the Bill of Rights and the laws, forget about trying to make law and order anywhere else. So if that's what you're saying, I agree with you. Okay. Okay, you guys are talking with each other, and that's great. So I'm not going to get into that. I know Tim blows. There are trolls here. I know. Like I told my moderators, if they catch them, they can boot them. I'm not going to take time to identify them and to act on it unless I see it just really stick out. Yeah, Jackie Flowers. And this is another example of what's happening. L.A., San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, homeless camps, horrible problem. I did a documentary back in 2011, the same time I did my Mexican drug war, Borders Mexican Drug War Insurgency documentary. It's about homeless camps. And I kind of focused on veterans who were kind of helping people who were homeless, who also lived in these homeless camps to make things more survivable. But yes, this is part of the destruction of our country, and the fact that people want to push this helping immigrants and migrants more than our own people, especially our veterans, that's deplorable. That shows you that they're really not interested in the human condition. They're interested in politics and their own power. And to destroy the inner cities with this is part of the problem too. That's part of what it's to bring down. When I first started my family, and it was a big one, I had some successes there, some failures, as most of you know. But the point is, I had a very good friend who was very well off. He was a psychiatrist, multimillionaire, was the state psychiatrist for California, Washington State, and Utah, I think. I think he held all three at the same time, or portions of it. But at any rate, I felt like one day that, I needed to give my kids, not that I could afford it, but I wanted them to have an experience of the finer things in life so that they'd learn to appreciate them, how hard it is to come by, and that they're really blessings, and that they increase your cultural awareness, your taste for good things, the good things. When there's nothing wrong with that. Jealousy, envy, wanting material things for the sake of having them is one thing, but trying to elevate people's understanding of the finer things in life, that's good. So I went out and I bought a really nice set of living room furniture, Victorian style. It wasn't cheap. And this friend came over, the psychiatrist, and he looked at it and he says, "Good on you, Roy. That's how you raise the consciousness and the awareness of cultural values to your children." So you see, they're trying to tear that down. They're trying to destroy this, because then we'll lose hope. Then we'll think that that's the way life should be and accept those lesser accomplishments or lack of accomplishments. Edelson James, you got another AR-15? Did you really? All right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You buy. I hope it wasn't too recent that you got both of them, because they'll red flag you for that these days. Well, they red flag you if you buy one of them, but when you buy more than one, I'm not saying you shouldn't have, but anyway, good for you. Good for you. I'd ask you what kind, but that's probably better that you don't put it on here. They're different makes and models. Bravo Company Manufacturing makes really, really good stuff, as does Daniel's Defense. And there are others out there. And like I said, the important thing is that you buy one. I'd like you to be able to buy one that is going to be really, really high quality. But the political statement is more important. And the lesser costing ones like the Smith & Wesson MP15 and I forget the Oracles, I think, is another one. They're really low cost. You're in the $400 to $500 range, sometimes $3.5, somewhere in there. For the purpose of having, they'll function okay, but they're not going to last, 20,000 rounds, 50,000 rounds like the really good ones. But buy the very best that you can afford. That's kind of how I look at it. Whatever amount you can afford, do that. If you can buy a $2,000, BCM or Daniel Defense, do it. If you can only afford a $300 or $400 Oracle or a Smith & Wesson MP15, do that. And a lot of these platforms you can improve as you over time. You can add better equipment on the better parts into the weapon, because they're all the AR-15 platform. You can add better bolts, even barrels. That gets kind of expensive, but the point is there are possibilities of doing that. Yeah, the Colorado sheriff standing his ground, Yukon Cornelius. I brought that up, as you know. Yeah, the border is critical, and Trump is still wavering. I can't. Yes, his hands have been tied for 2 years, but by the same token, should have seen this coming, because this is part of the program. Ann Coulter and I have, we've crossed swords a number of times, but she's right on with this. She's right on the money. Right on the money. And that's why I say I don't want Trump to be a placebo. And that's what Q did. It made us sit back and think everything's going to be taken care of, right? Rather than us getting involved. That's why as much as, I appreciate you all being here. I really don't. I kind of enjoy it in some ways, but it's not really what I want to do, if you know what I mean. But I feel like it's the best way for me to contribute to this, because of my experience in training and all of that. I've gotten out and been active on a few things in the past, but at this point, this is probably the best way for me to do it. It's not that I would object to being active out on the streets, but it just doesn't lend itself, for various reasons, for me to do that anymore. Yeah, Betty Harrison, the 10th Amendment should prevail. I believe that. You're absolutely right. Okay. Boy, Chris Garcia and Petros Bonanno. So I guess you guys are arguing about something. That's okay. Good. Democracy is the first step to socialism. Sir Law. Democracy is moral rule. Yet even Trump, a Kellyanne Conway, calls us democracy. True. That's why they got to stop that. And I agree wholeheartedly. They got to stop that. Jackie Flowers. Happy 4/1/19, but we are no fools. Edelson James, Hillary must hang. Yes, I agree with that. So does Clapper. So does Brennan. I don't know if we'd ever get Obama hung, but he should be as well. And there are others. Like I said, they're about a handful. They're about a handful, no more than that. The rest we're talking about sedition, trying to overthrow the government, those kinds of things. Richard B. Trump is not in charge. The FBI, CIA, and DOJ are so corrupt he can't move on the deep state. The Patriot Act turned every American to an enemy of the state. Richard B., I don't disagree with you. And I've been hollering about this forever. However, there is a way around it, and we've been calling on Trump to do it. It's dangerous. Barr might do something right. I don't know about that yet. But he has other methods of handling this, and it's not going to be pretty. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and we are in a situation where the intelligence community is our most dangerous domestic enemy, which is exactly the motto of my channel. And it's been that way for a long time. And we need to act against it. And we can do that without sacrificing or endangering our security because we still have the military intelligence community as well. Some of those interlap. I know, people don't understand this, but there are CIA people in the military. Some are known. It's a deliberate, coexistence between the two agencies. Others are not. They're infiltrated there to be like political commissars. Both exist. The CIA is very bad. It's very, very bad. Okay. Yeah, Dan says reluctantly. No, they don't teach American history anymore, and I've talked about that. They'll talk about China. They'll talk about Islam. They'll talk about anything else but their own values, the American Constitution and history. We're not the best. We've made some mistakes. There's some horrible things we've done, but the principles are worth promulgating. The principles are worth standing up for. How you stand up to the principle is the issue, not the principles themselves. And people have not stood up and supported those principles the way they should have. They've subverted them, they've ignored them, fought against them, and those are our enemies. The Constitution is not a living document. That's a way to destroy it. And again, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's not archaic. It still fits our situation even today. Yeah, Viet Cong fire. We can send all the best military units we have to foreign lands, but we cannot protect our border. Something is really clear here. We are not in control of our own country. Absolutely. We have traitors everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And people that are just simply doing it because they're trying to take advantage and they're trying to get rich. I don't want to hurt any Catholics' feelings here, but this whole immigration thing is a way to make money for the Vatican. Not that they need it, but it's also a method of control. Technically, I'm still Catholic, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows that. They never excommunicated me like the Mormons did. So I'm still technically Catholic. Isn't that interesting? Chris Garcia talking to Edelson James, you're actually right. It is going to come down to us, not just Trump. No single savior can do it. I agree with that. But you do need a head that everybody can gather around, and that's what I was hoping Trump is. But he's still not quite there. It's like I've said. I'm getting tired of the rallies and the pep talks with no action, and I think a lot of us have been saying that. I don't want any more rallies. Okay? Or if he's going to do them, at least be doing the actions that he talks about in there. Where's our protection of the Second Amendment he promised during the campaign? Where's his protection of the First Amendment and not just on the college campuses? I would love to tell a joke on this. Darlin Darcy says, y'all didn't hear? April Fool's has been canceled this year for all the shit that's going on around the world. Oh, do I tell this joke? At the risk, I don't care if I get banned, censored. I don't care. You all know that, I think. I'm going to tell this joke because some of you may know it. I had never heard it before. And I mean no disrespect to our Native American friends, okay? But it's just a funny joke. It really, really is. And to preface it, I think I can tell this joke because of something that happened to me, and I think I've talked about this before. When I was about 3 years old, I had been potty trained and all that, but we went out to my grandmother's farm out in the rural areas, and I needed to use the restroom. And so I said, Dad, where? And so he takes me through the mud room, and he goes outside. And there's another story about the mud room I could tell you about later. And he points to the outhouse, and he says, it's right over there. Go over there. Well, I'm just this little guy. I just started wearing my shorts, pants, and that thing. And I get out there, and, I open the door, right? And I look in, and here's this ledge, and it's almost as tall as I am. And I go, oh, what the heck? Well, what my dad didn't know is that I had to take care of number 2. So you can see what's coming, right? So I crawl up on this thing, and I try to slide back, and I lose my balance, and I fall in. Yes, I fell into an outhouse. I don't know how long I was in there. I can remember it just as clear as day, like it happened yesterday, but I don't know how long I was in there. I do know I was screaming for a long time. And finally my dad came out and looked down at me and grabbed me and pulled me out. So in other words, I think I can tell this joke, and I don't mean any disrespect to our Native American friends. And some of you may have heard this joke, but it really is true, because this person's saying they're shitting on us. They really are. They really are shitting on us. So let me tell you this joke. So there's this Native American, and he needs to use the restroom. So he goes out, and like me, he accidentally falls in. And he doesn't know how long he's in there, right? And like I said, I'm not a good joke teller, especially this one, because I'm a little concerned that I'm probably stepping on some toes here. But a guy comes out there and says, "Oh, let me help you get out." After quite a long time, and he helps this guy out, and he says, "Well, how long have you been down there?" And the Native American goes, "Many moons." How long you been down there? Many moons. In other words, how many times was he mooned and shit on? I didn't have that happen, but I think I could comment on that joke because I was kind of in that situation. Okay, golly, we've been going for an hour and 30 minutes here. Let me rush down through here. I'm sorry I don't get to everybody. I'm going to bust down to the bottom here and just take a couple down here, and then we'll go. All right. Wow. It's still jumping. I'm in the clear, what Jack Kennedy says. Thank you. I have Native American friends, by the way. I know people that were even in the American Indian movement. Okay? I had met Russell Means, for instance. So... Yeah, citizen grand juries are legitimate. Of course, they've tried to take total control over that with jury nullification, trying to stop that and all that. The system is definitely rigged against us. It is, and that's all for power. We can change it, but we just have to have the intestinal fortitude to do it. Okay, look, we've been going for an hour and 30 minutes. Sorry I didn't get to everybody. I hope you all have had a good conversation on the chat. Again, please go see Headlines with the Voice. Subscribe to her channel. She does very good work. And again, I don't know who her sources are, but they've rarely been wrong, if ever, actually. I think she's been more on target than probably anybody else that I know of. Certainly better than Q. By a long shot. Okay? All right. Appreciate everybody coming. Hopefully we didn't have too much interference with the internet today going down or anything. I did increase the bit rate on the video just a little bit to see where it would take us. Looks like it's been doing okay. So maybe I'll leave it there, maybe even try to increase a little bit more, but I know that the internet can't handle too much data. So, I got to be careful that I don't totally interrupt it. Again, thanks for coming. We're in for a rough ride here, no matter what happens. If Trump does move on these people in Barr, it's going to be rough. If he doesn't, it's going to be rough. Either way. So we're on our own. Just figure you're on your own. If Trump can fix it, better for us. But we've got to start taking care of ourselves. Get that food and that water and that guns and ammunition, like Kurt Schlichter says. Get ready, because if the Midwest doesn't be a problem, if it continues and we start losing our food supply, they'll use that as a weapon against us. Guaranteed. Didn't Kissinger say that? He was going to use food as a weapon. Not just putting stuff in it that's bad for you, right? Like the GMOs and the pesticides and all that. Not just that, but just cutting off the food supply generally. It's a method of warfare. It's interfering with the logistics supply of your enemy. So get your food supply together just in case, all right? Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. God bless you. God bless yours. God bless the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America and the Second American Revolution. God bless Donald Trump and all of his righteous endeavors, and may the Spirit of the Lord descend upon him, giving him the spirit of discernment that he may know the right from the wrong and have the courage to do the right thing. Thank you all. I think we're getting out of here right at the hour and a half point. You might see me do some impromptus, I don't know, but I did need to get this today. I'm not sure about tomorrow, probably not, okay, but we'll see. Okay, out here for now.